Hello, this is Alejandro Bratti from Believe in Yourself, Believe in Your Business, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Single TV channel 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Single TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free and available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Roku, and all smart TVs. Today, I am very happy to have a colleague, Ellin. We are studying and we are certified in with the Cialdini Institute in influence. So, how are you, Ellin?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Alejandro.
No, I believe today is going to be very interesting for several reasons. One, your story is amazing. So I believe there is a lot of nuggets of wisdom that you are going to be giving us, and also talking about influence and persuasion, something that I believe everybody needs to improve and keeps improving all the time when you learn what are the techniques and the things and understanding how even the psychology of human is, we can start to be better with everything that we are doing. So we are going to do a mix of both things in the middle of the story of Ellin, so that it's really awesome.
Well, I'm ready. Fire away.
Awesome. So, Ellin, we always start this conversation with what are you doing now? I know that I already introduced a little bit, but tell us a little bit more of what are you doing, and then we start to go back in your story.
Sure. So basically, I'm a human potential coach and mentor. I'm in the midst of getting my ICF certification in coaching, and we'll probably talk about this in a little bit. But at last September, I left Costco after about 9 years. And while I was there, even though I was getting paid to do another job, I conceived and founded a Mentee Ring Program, and my soul kind of came alive because I was in IT and supply chain, and here I was really enjoying mentoring others, seeing their potential, helping them in their careers, and really giving them, a platform to see their own potential, to see what the mentors saw in themselves, because I'd had very, very influential and persuasive mentors in my life. And so that is kind of what got me to leave corporate America after 35 years and really dive deep and hopefully help people, whether they're individual contributors or managers, see themselves just thriving.
Mm, awesome. So, in that's talking a little bit about your why you are doing what you are doing. If we go back in your life, how everything started, how Ellin started to become who you are right now. Uh, can you start to explain us a little bit on that? I know that we put a little bit in our banner saying like, okay, uh, you were widow and the breast cancer and the things that you go through that were like normal people can say very difficult. I don't want to say like that. I want to say challenging. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I call it the school of hard knocks. Sometimes those knocks kept coming, but yeah, I mean, I say it maybe with a little bit of a laugh because at the end of the day, while you're going through it, you have all these people telling you, well, you're so brave. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm brave. I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. And I ended up, when I was at Microsoft getting cancer 3 times. Luckily, it was caught pretty early, all 3 times. So my prognosis was good. But I had to go through, 3 different surgeries, and it's a little bit scary. And my mom ultimately succumbed from breast cancer, and so I probably maybe didn't deal with it the best way the first time because I'm an extrovert, and I decided to just be super quiet about it. But when you're going through something that's so exhausting, and for anybody who's ever done radiation, the exhaustion lags the radiation, and you're, getting zapped every day for like, I don't even want, I think it was 6 weeks or something. And so you're at your most exhausted, 6 weeks in, and you're just not your best, and people are kind of wondering why you're the way you are. So one of the first lessons I learned was to just be open. and kind of ignore what I thought was the big C on my forehead. Like, that's all anyone saw was the cancer. But kind of what, going back even further, the why for me creating the Mentee Ring program, which is what is my kind of platform for creating my coaching business and my mentoring business, was that I had a very influential mentor in my life. And while I was going through some, school, while I was going through some tough times and I wasn't like breaking out of my shell, I was being very reticent. And he's like, let's go figure out what some of those limiting beliefs are. And we went back, and it turns out that at formative years in my life, I had a lot of challenges with embarrassment. And the one that was the most prevalent was when I was 13 and I sang. My family was very musical and I sang. And at the time, my mom wanted me to not sing because she was making a political statement, and this is in the US, about the separation of church and state. And so I couldn't sing in the holiday performance. And so what she wanted me to do was stand on, wherever you stand when you're singing in the middle of a performance and not sing Ave Maria. Now, I loved Ave Maria. I thought it was gorgeous, and we were raised Jewish, and so I wasn't going to change my religion for this. But when you're 13, the thing you want to do the most is fit in. And so it was highly embarrassing. I don't know if you guys, wherever you are that's watching, ever remember those old big lights, Hilux lights they would have shining down on movie theaters. I felt like everybody could see my lip wasn't moving. And so that embarrassment got like stuck in my cells. And for anybody out there that knows anything about DISC or personality profiles, my extroversion got stuck. And so that meant I wasn't using my voice literally for myself, for other people, to advocate. And I was in this place where it wasn't a good thing. So my mentor said, and this is after my cancer story, so I'm like in my 40s. He goes, you need to do something really uncomfortable. So I want you to enter a cancer contest. And I'm like, what?
That's
I did a video, and it actually won second prize in the Seattle market. And what I got to do, I tease people that some people get 15 minutes of fame. I got 30 seconds because I cut an ad for the at Como TV in Seattle about early detection saved my life. But it got me out of my being stuck. And then that meant that years later, when an opportunity presented itself, I could be creative, and I could, even without knowing all of Dr. Cialdini's influence techniques, I could influence my senior executive and say, let's try this. And the rest is 5 years later, 200 mentees graduated. Pretty exciting.
wow. So tell me a little bit, because for me that story it's incredible. How even exists a cancer contest when really people is feeling like, I know I have some friends that had that, or family of friends that had cancer, and really is that story is like very shocking for the person and for the family, for everybody. It's like, we need to survive and we need to get out of this. So thinking about doing a contest, how was it? How was it for you? And what happened even when you did it?
Well, I kind of, now that I think about it, I buried the lead. So in my with my mentor, the one that challenged me when we went in and we tried to resolve my embarrassment, he point blank asked me a question, kind of like Columbo, for any of you guys remember that old TV show. And he's like, well, isn't it true that you overcoming cancer, that you had the seeds of your resiliency planted when you were 13, and you had to do this really hard thing? Because I was getting rejected by my peers because they didn't understand why I wasn't singing. And I was being true to my mom and her beliefs. And so I thought, what an amazing reframe. So instead of the inward feeling of, embarrassment, became the outward feeling of, just acknowledgement of my own, stick-to-itiveness. I don't know what other way to describe it. And so that turned the energy completely around for me. And so 2 years after my last surgery, when he said, okay, I want you to do this research contest, I thought, why not? Because what's the worst that can happen? I'll be embarrassed. And guess what? been there, done that. And yet I'm out there. I want to explain something. And it took a really long time. It's really funny. It takes a long time to get a message down from 7 minutes to like 25 seconds. And really, what I ended up saying is, aren't you bigger than, isn't the truth of you and all of who you are bigger than that one static picture of cancer? Because I was making me smaller and cancer bigger. That's what I did the first time I had it. Literally had a picture like in my subconscious mind that I now realize, but I didn't then. I was making me smaller. And so the reality of all of us, and what I don't think made the cut in the 30 seconds, was that scientists say that we change every cell in our bodies every 7 years. So how come we can't see ourselves way bigger, more powerful, more impactful, and wonderful people than just that one static picture of the cancer?
Wow. And that is really, I want to go a little bit deeper on that because something that happens all the time when we are having, you are talking about your story with cancer, but it can be another type of struggle that we are going through. It's like that's exactly what is happening when we are going through any problem. At the beginning, it's like we are seeing that problem like so huge and it's bigger than us, and we don't have a way to escape because it's so big. I even remember one time that I was dreaming and oh, I couldn't even stop. Do you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I don't know what happened. This thing was muted, no muted, muted, no muted. Uh, so it's those things are so big that we start to diminish ourselves, and that's exactly where even any type of sickness start to gain control over us, when we start to feel like so little that that sickness or that problem or that struggle or that situation, I don't know, whatever you want to put the name to that thing that you are going through, is not bigger than you. So learning how to reframe, like, okay, let's start to see what is the good thing about this situation. And I love your story when you're saying, okay, with cancer, I can reframe even with that. Because some people can say, like, no, cancer is not. That is so big and so I am not saying it because I haven't had it in the past, but I am hearing your story and that's what you're saying. So how having been using this technique, if we can say it like that, in the reframing part in other areas, and how you started to create that belief system in yourself that you can accomplish and go through any situation, no matter the situation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, people sometimes say, I don't know how accurate this is because, I do love research and stuff, but something like we use 5% of our brain. So I don't know if that's true, but we do know that we have a subconscious. And so when we go through the first, 0 to 7 or 8 years of life, maybe a couple more, we have all these, we're kind of wide open. And so the messages that we're getting as kids from parents and society kind of get in there. And then sometimes we, over that, later in life when we're adults, we have, our more conscious, intellectual faculties, and our frontal lobe is fully developed, with executive functions. And we can kind of like look at some of these beliefs that we had that we didn't realize we brought to, the time that we are in, and whenever we face a problem. And so I'm a curious sort, which is probably my superpower. And so I always try to think about, well, what if I just challenge that internal talk that I'm having about something? Like, why, first of all, you have to be aware. Like, I didn't even know that I was making me smaller than cancer. But like, when I won this cancer contest, which is so crazy to even say it in that sentence, I was like truly, I had gratitude for cancer. I had learned so many lessons through cancer that, I'd love to share some of them with you. But the biggest one is like, let's just be curious and let's look more about what ourself and do the internal work. My kind of my motto for my business is don't find yourself, define yourself and go beyond, which is about making the locus of control be within me. Like, what can I do? Yeah, we have lots of circumstances and situations, school of hard knocks that happen, but we still own our attitude. We still can have gratitude for the lessons that we're learning, even though maybe we didn't want to learn them. Like I didn't, really want to learn all about cancer. And I had kind of a funny, like sassy, I don't know, humor when I got it. I was telling my mom, come on, it's the perfect time to get breast cancer. They just opened a new wing at Evergreen Hospital. And she's like, Ellen, you're crazy. But I was like, I'm kind of looking on the bright side, everything's brand new doctors and everything. And you could even have a little bit of fun and joke because, my mom, love her, but she kept saying, how are you feeling? I'm like, Mom, please don't ask me how I feel. Have you seen those little babies where they're still learning, control over their facial muscles? And so they go through every emotion in 30 seconds. I go, when you ask me when I'm in the middle of my cancer, how I'm doing, there's 100 emotions. I go, why don't we just pretend I'm like, we're doing a shorthand because I had a stick. I had a VW Bug 66 Classic when I was in high school. So am I in first grade, first gear, second gear? What gear am I in? And the funny thing was I had a couple friends at Microsoft, similar time frame that were going through cancer. And my one friend, Donna, she's hilarious. She goes, I'm in reverse. And so it's like, now you have like a shorthand for how you're doing energy wise and everything. And, each person has to find their own way and they have their own journey through cancer. But if you can, still have an open mind, reframe, like learning is what we can all do, right? Every time something doesn't go the way we think or we fail, we can always grab learning from it. And wisdom is one of my highest values. And so everything that life throws at me, I can take learning from it. And so I would say reframing is something very, very powerful. And we should be hopefully using that technique in our own lives.
And quick question: when we are talking about reframing, this was with cancer. Was the first time you started to learn about the technique, or you started to have other little tests before?
I think I knew about it beforehand. Here's another cancer story. So I also the coach and mentor that I'm talking about was a hypnotherapist that I had bought his business right about the same time I was working at Microsoft. So that was a really heavy load. And so I had gone through hypnotherapy training and all that. But before I went through hypnotherapy training, the second time I had to go in the machine for, to get zapped for the radiation, I had a really bad reaction. It had been 2 years, 3 years. And when the noise went bum, 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 I tensed up. And I didn't know anything about hypnotherapy, anything like this. And I said to myself, this isn't going to work. So I calmed myself down and I said, let's just relax and say to myself, this is going to be healing for me. And so while I was like a little bit of PTSD with the bump, bump, bump and the radiation, and I calmed myself down, which was reframing. And it was kind of doing self-hypnosis, even though I didn't know any of those techniques.
Yeah.
I just knew I couldn't go through 5 weeks, of that, and it was great. And I didn't have any issues after that. So I think that, I give credit to all of us. I think many of us use these techniques. They don't know it's called reframing or things like that.
Exactly.
But yet you get really, really powerful results from it.
Awesome. No, I agree 100%. It's like there is a lot of people that doesn't like even the word, like, okay, how do you think about hypnotherapy? You are going to be hypnotized. That is really bad. Okay, and that is exactly what is happening when you go and you are watching TV and you are so involved in that movie that you forget about everything around, and people is talking to you and it's like, yeah, I don't know what are you talking about. Like, okay, it can be a game, it can be a movie, it can be whatever, but at the end, that is what is happening. And sometimes that is exactly what happens also with kids when they are so little. They are so involved in something that they don't even hear. I have my 3 years old kid that you have to repeat like 3 times sometimes when you are calling him because he's so involved in something that he aparts everything. And the idea of that is he's in this alpha mode or even delta mode, that he's learning so much from the thing that he's doing that he forgets everything around. And that's something that you what you are saying is like, maybe I don't know it. I feel that that is something even from the devil. I don't know, whatever that we want to say. and at the end is something that is happening all day, every day, in our lives.
Yeah. Can I make a couple comments on that? Because I did hear that a lot. I mean, people were like, can you hypnotize me? You know, like in quotes or something. And I'm like, first of all, like you said, our brains have certain waves depending on how, you know, what we're doing and all that. And so it's a completely natural state, and they can measure it with the right, you know, measurement techniques and all that. And, you know, what I say is that we are used to, some of us, with stage hypnosis. And I'm not going to, when I was doing hypnotherapy, it was client centered. I was never making anyone do against what they wanted. They were completely awake. They just were very relaxed physically, but they were awake and they were in their little chair and they were listening, and they could reject anything I told them. It was never my goal to do anything other than what they wanted. But at the end of the day, we have, you know, in our normal lives, we do something called highway hypnosis. Like we start at point A and we get to point B and we have no idea we just drove somewhere because we're in autopilot. And it's just like you said, that's hypnosis. That's also when we're learning. So we're in these stages. It's very natural. And I think that in many cases, hypnosis has gotten a little bit of some bad PR. And because people are used to, like, you know, don't make me quack like a duck or something on stage, you know, which is not, you know, the goal of hypnosis, you know, from my perspective in client-centered hypnosis. Now, I'm not doing that right now, but so much of the reframing and all these other techniques are absolutely achievable in just a regular conversation.
Yes.
And I've seen some like amazing, you know, reframes and amazing outcomes, you know, even without having to do, you know, what I would do when I was, you know, in my office back in the day when I was doing hypnosis.
Yeah, no, and I because for me this program is about our belief system. Maybe we can be thinking, oh, I don't like it, and that's why I don't want it, and it's okay. I am not here to to change your mind on that. I am just giving you an idea of what is really happening, and that's exactly what is happening when you are in front of that TV, or and you are completely unaware of what is happening around you. You are in one state that is called hypnosis at the end. Uh, so coming back to your story, Ellin, where you started to learn. Okay, I know that, and another part of your story is you have two daughters, right?
Oh, yeah. I didn't mention this part. So, and it's really hard. I got to do a timeline because I had cancer 3 times. And I think it was after the 3 times I had cancer that my husband died. But I'll have to go and take a look at the numbers of years. But my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer in his late 40s. And that was a huge shock because he was very, very healthy. And he decided when I went to work at Microsoft, we kind of had the fork in the road, you know, who's going to get the job. And then whoever gets the job, the other parent will be a full-time parent. And we moved from Washington State to, from California to Washington State because I was the one that got the offer to work at Microsoft. So my husband decided to be the stay-at-home dad. And my kids had him for almost 10 years that way, which was really amazing. But that was like another school of hard knocks, man. Like what, you know, what WTF? I don't know if I could say this on here, but I mean, it was awful because, you know, my kids had already been a little bit sensitized to cancer, and we had just gone on a family trip that was amazing to Costa Rica, down to the rainforest. My husband's father was a doctor and found out that you could buy rainforest way before anyone was doing that. And then built these huts. And so we're like in the middle of the rainforest having like this amazing vacation. And then my husband started to not feel very well. So on our way back, we knew something was really, really wrong. And so for like a week, we were trying to figure out what was going on. And once he got the diagnosis, we went to a social worker because, you know, I just wanted, kids are very perceptive, you know, and if there's tenseness in the family, they're going to feel it. So whether you tell them or not, they know something's going on. And even though my kids were, I'm going to remember their ages, 8 and 12, I wanted to know what was the proper way to tell them their dad has, you know, terrible disease that he'll most likely die from it. And so the social worker's like, give it a name. So we said, yes, dad has pancreatic cancer. Tell them they can't catch it because they were still young enough. And then tell them every emotion they're feeling is completely normal and to keep the communication going. And so we did that within a week of the diagnosis. And then I had to lean on a lot of family members to help me because he was the stay-at-home dad, and it was my insurance paying for all his medical bills. So we had to like figure out how we were going to manage the family and the normal routines and stuff like that. And so that was just devastating. And again, at the time, I wasn't quite ready to reframe this one, but at the time, my husband's like, we'll all be stronger for it. And I'm thinking, no, I don't know. You're going to be on it, off the planet or something. And maybe, the rest of us will be, because we'll be alive. Anyway, so that took me a while to get through, the loss of my husband and dealing with raising, teenagers on my own. But everybody, my kids now, well, when he did finally succumb, almost 2 years, which was very unusual, because in stage 4 pancreatic cancer, usually a lot of people older get it, like 70s, and so he was 40s. But he was great. He was walking around. He did chemo, but he was walking around up to like 3 days before he passed, and so it was a really tough thing. And then at that time, I had a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old, and so we had to figure out, how do you mourn? And there's no book. I mean, there may be books on it, but there's no like one fits all size for how you go through a mourning journey,
Yeah.
and especially with teenagers. And so we tried to find some support groups, and ultimately we just had to depend on each other and our good friends and neighbors.
So, and here for me, thank you for being so open and vulnerable with this,
Yeah.
because it's really powerful. How you connect all of these stories, and even this adversity that you started to find, to finding the resilience to survive. And it's like, I am going to much more than survive. Now you are talking about unlocking human potential. How you connect that adversity to that human potential that you have found, and that it's amazing in your story.
People ask me that. I don't know if I have the answer. Sometimes I just tease and say I'm stubborn. But I was like, I wanted my kids to have amazing lives. And, they're pretty lucky. Not everybody has, a parent that's able to stay with them. And so even though it wasn't the rest of their lives, they had, 10 years with their dad every day. And the other thing is that, I just want to like take the learning and just, go forward in some positive manner. And, like my motto says, don't find yourself, define yourself, and go beyond. For the longest time, I kept feeling like I was searching externally. And it's like, guess what? Looking internally about my own situation, my own, maybe unconscious beliefs, my own, triggers, as my younger daughter calls it. That could be kind of like a hero's journey. I know that sounds kind of weird, but like if I made myself the center of my own hero's journey, not that I think I'm, a hero like Superman or something, but that at least I acknowledge that I'm trying to get through stuff, and that the self-talk is more of like, you can keep doing it and persevere and be inspired as opposed to defeated. And believe me, there have been times in my life where I have been clinically depressed. So I know what that feels like. But even then, it was like that didn't last long because I got help. And then I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And so it's just this inner drive. I don't know what to say. I mean,
No, but what you are starting to say it, because there is two things that you are saying that is very powerful. One is one step after the other. That is something that is important, because sometimes we want to see everything that is going to happen in our lives, and it's like at that moment you just have to know what is the next step. That's it. That's one thing. And the other one is, you are talking about, and you have told about that several times in the program, is you had some help. You have people that was helping you. Tell us a little bit about that, the people that was around you, that you decided to, even your mentor, like what was the people that was around you, and what type of support you receive?
yeah, well, that is important. Well, I mean, it ranged, from anyway, I'm a fairly open book, as you can see. Doctors to help me go through the actual physical issues with cancer, therapists, coaches, mentors. I mean, I'm an equal opportunity person when it comes to, assisting others. And and the thing that probably was universal about all of them, because I chose them, if they weren't good for me, we would part ways. But they could see the potential in me that I maybe didn't see yet in myself. And so
Mm.
that there's something about them kind of witnessing my potential, seeing me, seeing how I could be now and what the future Ellin could be like. And I've always been kind of a forward thinker. I'm a little bit of a dreamer that way, meaning like I have a really good imagination, and so I could imagine, what would 6 months from now look like? What would a year from now look like? Do vision boards. I mean, literally cut out pieces of, pictures and stuff, but it was like, kind of like goal setting, but like in a visual way. And it was kind of all of the above. And so I just was really lucky. I was blessed with so many great resources, either, through work or friends or colleagues.
So when you are talking, because this is powerful, when you have like different people helping you to see your potential even when you don't see it,
Yeah.
you are borrowing their beliefs, and that's another thing that can happen. It's like when we are going through adversity and through problems, if we found somebody that believes in us, we can use that to survive and to have that resilience that you are looking for. And that's what I'm hearing from you. Is like, okay, there was some times that I was not really the best example maybe of going through every single detail, but finding those type of people that believes in you and believes in your potential and believes in everything that you are going to do in this world was enough.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how powerful that is. You hit it right on the nose. Find people where you can borrow their belief in you. And that's what was so funny. I kind of laugh at myself sometimes because, I went through all this and I were times where I had to lean on other people to see my belief. And when I created the Mentee Ring program, what I realized was that I could be that person for these mentees,
Mm.
that I could believe in them and they could borrow my belief in them if they needed to. Many of them were great and didn't need it, but it was like, how can I pour into them the way that mentors had poured into me? It was just so wonderful to be able to do that. And at the time, when I got my cancer, I took an off ramp from management at Microsoft, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I became an individual contributor. And so ever since then, and even when I was at Costco, I was an individual contributor acting as a program manager. My husband keeps laughing. He goes, "Will you stop saying you weren't a manager?" I was managing a program, but I didn't have anybody reporting to me. But I didn't matter. It didn't matter what my title was. I could help people. I could, listen, reflect. We could ask questions if anybody's gone through, good coaching sessions, or witness them. And it's amazing what someone who could be a little bit of a thinking partner, or even someone to reflect, can do to kind of get us unstuck in our thinking and identify either those limiting beliefs or the new self-talk that we need to adopt, because that is huge. We can do that. I have
Yeah.
no doubt.
No, and that explains a lot of what you were doing. So there is another thing that you talk that I believe I want to know a little bit more because can help people that is going through different situations. And really whoever is listening to us right now, don't think about if I am cancer, then this works. No, this works for any adversity. So when you are talking about visualization, you were talking about like, okay, now I am in this struggle, and this is the adversity that I'm going through, and it can be your husband, or it was your kids, or your teenagers, or yourself. There was a lot of adversities going through. You started to do this visualization. Help us to understand a little bit more about that visualization, how it works, including the vision board and or the other part. What was the thing that helped you most?
Well, I'll tell you what helped me the most. You guys could look this up. It was a a quote from Teddy Roosevelt, believe it or not. In my 20s, I became aware of his man in the arena quote. I don't know if you guys know about that. But I was brand new. I was healthy. I thought it was invincible. That was the hard part about getting cancer the first time, is that like the scales fell off my eyes and I was no longer invincible at 39. I was like, oh my God, I actually can get sick, and it's serious and I have to pay attention. But what Teddy Roosevelt talked about, it wasn't the critic that counts. It's about the person who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who is at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and at the worst, if he fails greatly. He fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And ever since that, I thought, okay, that's going to be what I do. Because, I may not be the sharpest person in the room. I actually don't want to be. I want to be around people that are really smart and brilliant and challenge me. But I can work hard. Like, nothing's stopping me from working hard and for daring greatly. And, if I get knocked down, get brought back up again. In fact, you guys might laugh, but I just have to share on a more humorous note. I don't know if your audience is going to remember Weebles. Do you guys remember Weebles?
No.
So in the 1970s, Hasbro made these little toys. And I literally have this as like my little emblem because I'm very visual. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. They don't fall down. I am like a Weeble. I am shaped to not fall down. Or if I do, not for very long, because I'm going to get back up. I'm going to be like what Teddy Roosevelt said, and I'm going to reach out and get people to help me if I can't do it on my own. And then we're going to keep doing the next step, the very next step.
And that's exactly what we are talking about in this program. What is your belief system? What are you believing in you that can help you go through any situation that comes in front of you that you have right now? So if you are that weevil that that you are going to come up again, it doesn't matter that you go down, it's going to go up. It's like, okay, I don't have to be perfect, I just have to continue.
And let me tell you about perfect. Oh my goodness, I couldn't have planned that better. So I am a little bit of a word nerd. So I like to share the etymology of perfect because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And guess what? The per part of the PER part of perfect means thoroughly or completely. And the fect means to do. So I think many people think of perfect as flawless. I balance that out and I say, not in every case, because if we're thoroughly doing, completely thoroughly doing, and today I completely and thoroughly do, now maybe I'm smarter tomorrow and I'll completely and thoroughly do it tomorrow. So perfect to me is just thoroughly doing me every day.
Wow.
Let go of the perfectionism. Just do your best, because that's all honestly we could ever do.
Exactly. And the problem normally with perfect is you are going to start to do it when it's perfect, and you never start, like, because when it's perfect and when I know everything, I am going to do it. So you never start, you never do it. So yes, I agree. I love that story. Now, because it's going so quick, the program, I was expecting to have more time, but I want to talk a little bit about influence, persuasion, and how that start to connect with everything that you have been talking to us today.
Yeah. So, my dad was a aeronautical. Well, he went to MIT and got his degree in aeronautical engineering, and he was in, cybersecurity before they even called that. And so I was kind of raised in an atmosphere of enjoying, engineering, stats, science. I didn't actually go into science in college. And so everything that I've been doing so far in my career, and the story I've told you, has been around, learning skills that then, when my soul came alive during the Mentee Ring Program, I could help others. And so, I can help them, with, not doing hypnosis, but the techniques, of reframing and other things, absolutely apply in, regular, conversations when you're having, coaching sessions. But the thing that I was missing was the science behind the influence. And so I had read Dr. Cialdini's book, and when it was an opportunity for me to serve as a program consultant, I jumped. And of course, I'm also going to be going through the program like you. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, if there's someone who studied the science of and the research of influence over, 40 or 50 years, that would be kind of, in my book, kind of silly to not pay attention to it, and I laugh because some people might say I'm a little bit bold and sassy in saying this, but can't we all use more influence in our life? Of course we start with ourselves, influencing myself, because that's kind of where everything starts. But at the end of the day, in any conversation that we're having with people, we may be trying to influence, I worked in IT and supply chain, and I did a pretty good job of influencing. I sold my ideas when it came to how we were going to structure certain programs and projects, IT projects at Microsoft. And then also the Mentee Ring itself, I had to sell the VP. And I tease people, it's not the elevator speech, it's the sell of our line. Because I was right behind her, and I'm like, great, she's getting more tomatoes. I'm like, and so this program will be complementary to the other program. So I was probably using influence techniques that Dr. Cialdini had. I didn't even know about it, and so now I'm learning about it, and I'm realizing there's some amazing subtleties. And what's so amazing about Dr. Cialdini, besides the subtleties, is it's universal. It's all cultures. It's just how we're wired as humans. And when you learn these nuances, it just ups your game, and the thing about it is he's so everybody at the Institute is really focusing on the ethical application. We want win-win outcomes, that's what it's all about. And so that would be, I guess, a quick intro to my passion about everything Dr. Cialdini and influence.
No, I wish a little bit more minutes, because really I believe this is key for what is coming in the world. Right now, I know that there is a lot of AI, there is a lot of communication around the internet, around people, around every place. But influence is key to really go above everything that it's all the noise maybe that we can be hearing, or all the situations that are around us. So that's where that is very important. And also another thing that in my case, and I am going to talk about myself, like uh, persuasion. At the beginning, when I was hearing that voice, I was that word, I was thinking like, okay, persuasion is trying to manipulate another person. That was my first thought, and that's why for me, just talking about persuasion was like, no, 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 I don't want that, because I don't want to be manipulated, and I don't want to manipulate others. And when you start to understand this persuasion, the techniques, first, that ethical is the first thing that has to be in front of everything. And it's like, for example, at the end, when I am persuading somebody, I need to start acknowledging the other person. That's the first step. If I don't acknowledge why, and I don't see anything good on you, for example, how I can persuade you? If I don't connect with you, there is nothing that connects us. So I can persuade if I acknowledge and I know that we are equal and we are the same and we can do something bigger together. So that's was a change in my mind. So what are things that you started to find now that you are in this road, a little bit different from what you were?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have amazing access to the research, and we've had a couple free webinars, so I'm sure we'll have free ones in the future in case anyone in your audience wants to listen to just the very impactful research. When we talk a little bit about those nuances, though, like one example is reciprocity, and in many cases, many companies are doing it wrong. They're going out there and they're giving like freebies of coffee cups with their company's emblem on it or logo. But reciprocity has to have three conditions be true. It has to be meaningful to the person you're giving it to. It has to be tailored specifically for them, and it has to be unexpected. And so once you learn these nuances, the conversation, this like win-win opportunity just gets born. And we all have this sort of innate like pay it forward kind of mentality. I'll use my own words. I'm not Dr. Chelney. And so it's like if someone does a good favor for me, like unexpected, it's got my name on it, it's got my logo or something, I would be like, wow, how kind, let me kind of help them or be on the lookout for helping them. And so these are just universal human, principles, and they're wonderful. And like you said, completely ethical. And that's the part I love the most about it. And going through the Cialdini Institute and learning this, it's not about, I could read the book, totally get that. But the nuances and the application is where it takes you to that next level.
Awesome. So we're in the last 3 minutes, maybe. How people can connect with you? Tell us a little bit about your Sidell version of
Sidell Method.
Exactly.
Sure. Well, I think you can tell it's a multidisciplinary approach to, optimizing human potential. You can reach me on my website, ellinsidell.com, spelled Ellen with an I there. And I'm just out there, wanting to help people. What breaks my heart is imagining anyone in a corporation who doesn't see that they can reach the next rung on their career ladder. Not my career ladder, but the one they define, because I'm all about that. And, how can we, switch that around and support you, borrow my belief, or use me as a sounding board, because I just love that more than anything to help other people, because again, so many people poured into me. So it's my way of paying it forward.
So really, Ellin, for me was impressive. So thank you very much for this conversation today. It was amazing, and thank you everyone that was listening to us. Ellin was really open with her heart and sharing the stories. I know that there was some moments that even we were a little bit like, I want to cry right now. But thank you. It was really really helpful, I believe, to hear your story, to know that there is also always a solution for anything that we are going through, any situation, any adversity. What is one? Maybe we can finish even like reading again this the phrase that you were talking about, Theodore, because really we can close with the program with that.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, thank you so much, Alejandro, for having me here and getting to meet you through the Cialdini Institute of Influence. Just remember that big realization I have: you are bigger than your circumstances. Just like I made myself smaller than the cancer. And my motto is: don't find yourself, define yourself. Define what your values are. Define what makes your blood get all excited and you get, mission driven, and then go beyond, be uncomfortable. We all have to be uncomfortable in growth. But at the end of the day, it's like this cycle. You get uncomfortable and then you learn a new skill, and then you grow again and you get uncomfortable again. And so that's just kind of how life's pattern is in my view. So.
And do you want to read the phrase that you were talking about? That you were reading before?
Oh, you want me to read The Man in the Arena?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat.
So I love it. Thank you, Ellin. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us today. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the Nissan programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you, Ellin. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you, Alejandro.